It's 10 a.m. in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning, another fresh opportunity to have 55 minutes of relevant and current business conversations. And it happens right here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's dive right into it now with all prices. Prices dropped today as investors are worried that aggressive interest rate hike from global policymakers would slow economies and dent fuel demand, while renewed restrictions to curb COVID-19 in China has added pressure to that. Brent crude futures fell 80 cents to $94.84 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude slid 85 cents to $88.70 a barrel. Growing fears over weakening fuel demand due to aggressive hikes by the US and European Central is very much behind this. And then, of course, China's factory activity contracted for the first time in 3 months in August amid weakening demand. The southern Chinese tech hub Shenzhen tightened COVID-19 curbs as cases continue to mount in that region. And then back here in Nigeria, Interswitch, a leading technology-driven company, has launched a new brand campaign tagged "Never Stop" to herald the commemoration of its 20th anniversary. During the event, which was held in Lagos, the founder and chief executive officer of Interswitch, Michelle Elegbe, explains that the company will remain a frontier in pushing boundaries and facilitating the creation of ecosystems that help businesses and individuals thrive.
A media parley between top management staff of Interswitch and journalists kicks off events to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the company.
It was a good way to introduce people to the use of cards in Nigeria.
This session is meant to deepen the media's understanding of the company's mission, its values, successes, and challenges over a 20-year journey of transforming Africa's digital economy.
20 years down the line, we're looking back and we are thanking God for some of the decisions we took. One of them is a concept we call the live and let live model, whereby we are able to build products, but also allow others to build their own products on our infrastructure and compete against us. What we will be celebrating is the success of the ecosystem.
On the other side of the event, Interswitch hosts other players and stakeholders in the fintech ecosystem to an evening of entertainment as a live band serenades guests with musical genres traced back to when Interswitch was founded. One of the highlights of the evening is the launch of a new campaign tagged "Never Stop."
Today, Interswitch products and services power up millions of transactions across the African continent, but it wasn't always that way. At Interswitch, we are committed to inspiring Africa to greatness through innovation, value creation, and excellence.
The 20-year success opened a new chapter for further growth. A glimpse into the future suggests that more work needs to be done with the Never Stop movement.
Today, payment penetration in Nigeria is less than 20%. So there's still 80% to go. So part of the thing Interswitch is looking forward to in the future is how to take the experience we have had in one sector, one vertical called financial services, into other verticals, whether it is healthcare, whether it is government, whether it is education, whether it is transportation, and so on and so forth.
Over the next 6 months, Interswitch says it will unveil a lineup of brand campaigns, commemorative events, and thought leadership initiatives centered around this significant corporate milestone of 20 years.
And from Interswitch, let's leave the shores of Nigeria just for a little bit. AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2022 with the theme "One People, One Destiny, Uniting and Reimaging Our Future" is on at Barbados. Our correspondent Chris Elems joined them there yesterday. It actually started yesterday, and so he joins us now from Barbados to give us an update of what's going on there. Hey, Chris, have you jackpot?
No, I haven't.
Well, good to have you there joining us. It's 5 a.m. there, I learned. And
yeah, 5 a.m.
to join us. Thanks for that. So what's this about? What are we expecting? What do we think we'll get from you? And what are some of the conversations you are hearing there already? I know you had some cocktail and social event yesterday.
Yes, the cocktail and social event was just to welcome delegates. Over 2,000 delegates are respected from all over the world, over 90 countries and 50 from Africa. As of yesterday, the skyline of Barbados was quite busy with planes coming in and jetting out. And I wished we also had like a Nigerian Airways, bringing in people. But we saw more of Ethiopian Airlines, bringing in people to Barbados. Well, just as you said, the theme "One People, One Destiny" and reimagining our future. Recent events has actually recent events such as COVID-19 and of course the war in Ukraine have actually reshaped the way we think. The impact has been quite brave on so many countries of the world. So it's now making people look at other strategic relationships that would help, build economy, that would help forge a common front towards developing trade, investment. And that is what this is all about. A lot of people have seen these Caribbean islands of Barbados as a tourist destination. But the Caribbeans, they're saying we are more than just a tourist destination. We can do much more than that. We can forge a common front. We can build relationship, business, commercial, strategic relationship. And that is what this is all about.
All right. So you did mention that a lot of African countries are there. You are there from Nigeria. Have you met with some Nigerian delegates? What are the plans? You talked about a strategic partnership. It seems to be one of the focus now. Have you spoken to any of them? Have you heard of who they hope to partner with?
First of all, the business community here is very, very happy about what is happening. And I met some Nigerians actually yesterday. These are individuals finding ways to expand their business frontiers. Though I haven't met any federal government delegation, I saw some from Ghana, I saw some from Senegal, but I'm yet to see any from Nigeria. Well, the program begins officially today. Hopefully, we should find some Nigerian delegations from Nigerian government here. But the business organization, the informal sector, they're here. They want to really see how they can build on existing relationship, how they can take it from where it is now to a higher level. At the moment, trade and investment between the Caribbean and, of course, African country is still hovering around $500 million. And what they expect is that at the end of this program, it should actually have been ramped up to over $1 billion. And they are really looking forward to this. So discussions will be on inter-regional trade and investment. And it's going to be around the service industry, manufacturing industry. I met an Egyptian aquaculturist yesterday. They are ready to invest so much around here. They are ready because of Barbados is is just a tiny island somewhere in the midst of water. So they are hoping to invest in the the aquaculture sector. And there are other investors like that, the oil and gas industry. There are people also hoping to invest, in Barbados. So definitely, it's a wide range of business opportunities that this is opening up to Africans and, of course, to those from the Caribbean generally.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. I do hope that apart from reporting the events, that you attract some foreign direct investments into Nigeria. And when you're coming back, you come back with a lot of investments into the country.
No, really, really, we look forward to learning a lot from this place. You know, this place actually reminds me of a place like Badagry in Nigeria. They have almost the same, you know, climate condition. But unfortunately, why Barbados is actually enjoying so much, Badagry is suffering. You know, I mean, they can also make the most of that place. I feel the leadership in Nigeria should begin to look inwards and develop what we have. And that's what Barbados has done so far.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. You certainly have a whole lot to hear from you before you come back to Nigeria. And so we'll be talking to you later on.
Thank you. Definitely.
All right. So that was Chris Illems, our correspondent, who is currently at Barbados to cover that business summit there. And we do know that he's going to feed us in with a whole lot of information before he gets back into the country. Now, well, he talked about Barbados being very aquatic. I guess we should also look at the maritime sector back here. A close look at the details of the second quarter of 2022 GDP report suggests that maybe the maritime sector is underreported. That was observed from that analysis, and a whole lot of individuals, economists, and stakeholders have been complaining about that. In the second quarter GDP report, the maritime sector, mostly the water transport, was said to have contributed a mere 2.4 billion naira to the GDP out of 45.5 trillion naira for the quarter, and this contribution is just about 0.01% for the first quarter of 2022. So let's have this conversation this morning and see, well, from the eyes of the inward, we have Dr. Ikenna Nwosu joining us now to tell us if indeed their sector is being underreported. Good morning, Dr. Nwosu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Nini. Thank you.
Yeah. So you guys are complaining that you're underreported in the second quarter of the GDP is 0.01% for the first quarter, and now you say you're underreported. Do you align with that perspective?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Absolutely, we don't. In fact, it says quarter one was 0.00, quarter two was 0.01. So how could it have contributed something to the first quarter of the year? In any case, the language was clear. Water transportation. Transportation. So the MBS has to tell us what is the basis for using the word water transportation, because water transportation is not the entire maritime sector. The maritime sector is a very complex ecosystem that has so many value chains. So where you want to start from? If you're talking about water transportation, is he talking about the ferries that move people from Marina to within Lagos, interstate, intrastate? Is he talking about cabotage within the country?
Do we have interstates?
Yes.
Water transportation.
Some people paddle with canoes from one state to the other. Particularly
which other states?
Kogi State.
Oh, okay.
Kogi to Kwara, in those areas, yes.
Okay.
Because we have over 4,000 kilometers of inland waterways.
Yes.
850 kilometers of shoreline. This country is, 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone. It's a maritime paradise. So when you look at the ecosystem of the maritime sector, that calculation of MBS is wrong because it says water transportation. The irony is that I took my time to go through Nigeria's development plans. That language is the language used in all the development plans, including the National Development Plan.
The water transportation, is that what you're referring to?
Or maritime transportation.
Okay. But it's more than transportation.
That is wrong. It's a maritime industry ecosystem. So the National Development Plan has that. The ERGP has that. The Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan does not even mention it.
But what have you people done? Because the NBS might be struggling with lack of data, which we know is a major challenge in Nigeria.
That's
correct.
The
issue of data.
The issue of data, what they have to do first is to map the ecosystem. So we understand what you mean by maritime sector. So many value chains. Is it the container ships? Is it the large tankers that bring in, that export crude oil? Is it the large...
There's the warehousing also?
Is it the warehousing? Is it the road transportation?
College.
All the vessels, all the offshore vessels, the FPSOs, the oil rigs, all of them are under maritime because they're regarded as vessels. You come down to the clearing and forwarding services, you come down to the dock workers, the stevedoras, the dock workers, the seafarers, you come into cabotage, you come into on the commercial shipping side, you look at the vessels that bring in break bulk, the vessels that bring in containers, you look at the vessels that do dredging. It's a whole ecosystem.
So where's the missing link now?
The missing link here is that the National Bureau of Statistics at the lower end and the federal government at the top end has never, in all their development plans and in their development planning, created a niche for the maritime sector. And outside the oil sector, the maritime sector is the second largest revenue earner for this country.
Is it the maritime or agric?
Maritime, and I'll tell you why. Forget what the statistics say. We are in the system. When you look at a lot of the revenues that are ascribed to some of the other sectors, particularly the oil sector, they are actually maritime sector revenues. Take an example. The Guardian newspaper reported in February this year that between July 2019 and August 2021, the total freight paid on 41 billion liters of petroleum products imported to this country was 861 billion, which is more than the budget of all the 36 states of this country, excluding Lagos, for 2022. So how can you tell me that is freight only on imported products? I'm not imported petroleum products for those 2 years. I'm not talking about freight on other cargo brought into this country, other cargo sent out, commercial cargo. I'm not talking about the offshore oil vessels. I'm not talking about the break bulk vessels. The ecosystem is so large.
Could it be that the sector is more informal than formal, which that is why, they are not captured?
No, that is not the correct thing.
Okay.
The correct thing is that the government has not identified the maritime industry as it should be, as a complete ecosystem. They keep calling it maritime transport. There's a lot of value chain development in the maritime sector that is not transportation.
So what should we do now?
Good. Map the sector. The ecosystem should have its different value chains mapped out. The federal government should create a separate ministry for maritime. If you have a separate ministry for petroleum, your largest revenue earner, you have a separate ministry for agriculture, major contributor to GDP. You have for trade and investment, manufacturing. Aviation doesn't even add up to half of what maritime contributes to this country if you do the proper mapping, yet it has a ministry by itself. Many key countries in India, it's called the Ministry of Ports, Shipping, and Waterways. Pakistan, Portugal call it Ministry of Maritime Affairs. So because of the language government uses, Ministry of, they call it water transportation, it's put under the Ministry of Transport. So if you look at the National Development Plan today, the maritime sector was put under transport, and it has a section called maritime transport. And that is wrong. Since independence, this country does not have a national transport policy.
So can we start the lobbying? Are you doing the lobbying?
Because
yes, that's the way to go.
It's happening. And then they are planning a national maritime transport policy. You see again the wrong term? It should be national maritime policy or maritime industry policy, not maritime transport. So that language is what the National Bureau of Statistics will pick out: water transport, maritime transport, and circumscribe the sphere of the sector. How can you tell me that 2.4 billion only was contributed in Q2? Last year, the DG of NIMASA reported that NIMASA contributed to the consolidated revenue account 37 billion for the whole of last year. MPA has exceeded its own revenue targets. The DG of NIMASA said last year that this sector, maritime sector, could could generate more than 75% of what oil sector earns, which is about $39 billion a year. So how can you tell me that in Q2 alone, we did 2.4 billion naira? Absolutely wrong. Absolutely. So the NBS needs to go back, sit with the federal government, the Nigerian Economic Management team, get back to the Ministry of Transport, the presidency, the SGS office. They need to map the sector. They need to create a separate ministry for it to give it what it should be, Maritime Affairs Ministry. And based on that, collect the data from all the sector players. And then you have the correct information. Noting also, all the data that is pushed and revenue pushed to oil sector has to be removed from oil sector and put back to maritime, because the maritime sector is the key enabler for oil and gas sector.
Yeah, but I believe it is members of the industry like yourself,
yes,
who has the responsibility to push for this. Because if you just wait and say the NBS should do that, it may not happen. So as a stakeholder, I mean, your association and some other association, the LCCI, yes, and all that, if you come together with a voice and present your matter and do the lobbying, you know, which obviously is a necessity,
yeah,
then
right,
I believe you will get that. But thank you so much, Dr. Nwosu, for sharing your time with us. And we do wish you the best in your lobbying. Ours here is to report. So we'll be here again. Once we get the change, we'll bring you back again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, so talking about on the reporting, but after that, we'll take a break. And when we come back from that break, commodities market update is next. So stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. It's commodities time now. We have for the second time this week Bolanle Agbaje joining us. Hi, Bolanle. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Even though the oil prices aren't looking so good,
yes,
we are seeing the fear of recession, yes, interest rates hike, beating it down. I think it had a little bit of recovery, I think, yesterday.
Yes, because we had seen increased production from Iraq, but at the same time, there was also hopes that the deal between the US and Iran would actually bring out something positive. But so far, we had seen, inflation rate in the Eurozone increase to about 9.1%, which was more than what analysts expected. I think they expected about 8.9 to about 9%. And this is much worse. And it's the fact that, many central banks are still hammering on the fact that, a recession is imminent. It's just how deep and how long this recession would last. So they're expecting this, and it's just going to bite hard for many consumers.
And it's not helping. It's not helping in China and those Asian countries because of COVID-19.
Yes,
they're just so determined.
They're determined to make sure, because it started from that area, that region, and
so once bitten, twice shy.
Yes, and they're trying to make sure that this doesn't actually have any significant, or long-lasting impact on the economy. So they're making sure that the fact that they're engaging, they're facing some challenges at the moment. They're expecting that in the long run this would actually reduce or not necessarily affect the economy in the long run.
How long do we expect this? I mean, the war is still going on. Yes. Energy prices are still hiked. So we don't see reprieve anywhere,
but you do know that the war was what made, what made the impact worse on many economies. And we don't know when this war would end or what would happen in the future.
Can we beg Putin?
I'm sure you have some economies that have actually done that. Turkey, for one, because I think they're on the good side of Putin. But at the same time, we do expect that in December, all of these sanctions would come to the full surface. And we don't know actually what would happen to major economies when that happens. I don't think Putin looks like he's ready to back down. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year, or how long this actually drags on for.
Yeah, and that reminds me, because during we have a special program, Russia Invasion, that looks at that. So we took a deep look into the Russian economy, and we see that they're kind of adjusting. So for instance, Gazprom, their major gas seller and all of that, they just declared profits, of high amounts. And then we see that they're adjusting by looking inwards. So their PMI is up.
Yes, so, they were the ones that started the war. So I'm definitely show
So they
that
put some things in place
yes, because they obviously, looked at the worst case scenario of what would happen, how major economies, because, a war in this day and age is kind of unheard of. Many economies are wondering why you were having a war that, we actually faced in the past, God knows how many years before now. So I'm sure they already had solutions in place for, what the repercussion of this would happen.
All right, so if we'll have that first slide again on the screen, yes. I really appreciate that, where we're seeing the talk of Niger Delta. There you have it,
yes.
Banana. You can look at
yes,
look at it there. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, we had a $1 billion plan
clean up, yes.
to clean
it
up
drags
Niger
on.
Delta.
Bloomberg released such an interesting report on this. The fact that, this oil spill had dragged on, it happened 12 years ago, and we're still talking about the cleanup up until now.
Yeah, I remember when we had an elaborate ceremony. We had it live on Channels Television that there's going to be a Ogoni cleanup, and that's how many years ago?
Yeah, 12 years ago. And at that time, the UN actually predicted that the cleanup is only going to last for about 30 years or more. And it's just been 12 years. And at the same time, you have communities actually complaining about the fact that Shell has not really done so much in terms of cleanup. The fact that this Ogoni land was very ripe with different agricultural produce. You have palm oil. You have the fact that they focused on other agricultural produce to actually promote their land, and this oil spill actually turned it into what we're seeing today.
Yes,
exactly.
Because I know when you watch some documentaries of fishermen,
it's terrible. Fishery was one of the major.
Exactly.
Yes, it's actually a terrible situation, and it's definitely going to take. Well, we're seeing $1 billion now, and I'm definitely sure it's actually going to increase much more than this, just because they've delayed the cleanup so far.
And it's costing a whole lot. It just brings back that question of, is oil a blessing or a curse to the country? Because, I mean, look at the number of things you have mentioned now, the fish, the palm oil.
Yes.
I mean,
these are other substitutes that we had actually mentioned several times for Nigeria to look inwards to. But a land that has been ripe in the past of producing some of these agricultural products, we're not actually doing so much. Shell has not. They keep mentioning the fact that it wasn't their fault. It was more or less the vandalism that created that oil spill that damaged the land, and they've pulled out now. So, and the fact that a lot of countries are now talking about moving away from oil. Nobody is actually focusing on the repercussion of what
of the oil.
Yes, exactly. And these communities, I don't think they have when you talk about the percentage of the community versus the other population in Nigeria, I don't think they have as much power in trying to get what they want.
And we're still talking about the vandalism that we say
yes, and we're still talking about vandalism in other parts of Nigeria as well. And the fact that it dates back to Ken Saro-Wiwa, and we're still discussing this now. It's a terrible situation for Nigeria.
I wonder, have you heard anything about the Seplat deal?
Not yet, but
yeah,
we'll
definitely it's kind of quiet from that side now. We don't know, what has happened. Okay, so we see that we have the Russia there. We know that they've turned off their gas
pipeline, and that's going to definitely increase the price of gas even much more than we discussed. Yeah. And the fact that we don't know how long it's going to be off for maintenance, but
they said 3 days. So we hope it will be back on.
We hope. Yeah,
because even this maintenance seems to be
more often than not, you don't have a situation where the maintenance actually, lasts for the days that they specify. Most times after the 3 days, they would actually ask for, an extension. We do hope it's 3 days, but at this point, natural gas is about $9 million, $9 per MMBTU, and we expect that to even increase higher. And obviously, bite hard when it comes to European inflation.
And then we see that the price of cocoa is coming back up.
Yes,
is the fertilizer issue over?
Yes, so we have a situation where we have substandard pesticides in Ghana, and the fact that the pesticides that actually promote good crop or high quality crops are quite scarce and expensive. So most of these farmers have actually switched to substandard, and that would definitely affect their output, even though the output maybe remains the same, but the quality of the output is in question. But when you look at the good side of it, Nigeria is obviously we're one of the major producers as well, and it benefits us us that the price is actually at about 2,000.
But we're not producing at the maximum.
No, well, we're looking forward to the harvest season and trying to see what comes out of Ondo and major, high producing states.
Okay, all right. But still about cocoa, we see there are concerns about next year's West Africa cocoa crop quality.
Yes, it boils down to this same pesticide issue and the fact that everything has become expensive. There's no new technological advancement in that space, but I'm sure Ghana and Ivory Coast would definitely, look forward to see what they can do to actually improve the living standards of the farmers, improve the quality of products they actually produce, because they're heavily dependent on this particular produce. Nigeria, well, we do hope. I don't know what Nigeria is doing at the moment. Our production is more or less stuck at about 280,000 metric tons, but it'll be nice to see what happens in the next few months or after the harvest season to see what they do in terms of planting.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that, Bolanle. Thank you so much. As usual, Bolanle Agbaje, analyst with Financial Derivatives. Thank you for bringing us up today with Commodities Space.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That was the Commodities Space. And cocoa seems to be one sticking conversation that we've had. Remember, I think 2 weeks ago, we did have the president of Cocoa Producers Association in Nigeria to tell us. And he did mention some of those challenges, seedlings, pesticide. Now, pesticide is available in Ghana. Wonder if we get to Nigeria. Well, let's move to another market now. It's the money market where you can make money. And Will Ibong has information from that market. Hey, Will.
Good morning. Good morning. I'll bring good news today.
You're smiling so much. I wonder how much you made from equities yesterday.
Well, I didn't make so much, but I'm sure investors made a lot of money yesterday. Yes, I broke the news.
I think you had like 200 plus billion.
No, $105 billion was added yesterday. That was massive, especially when we had the 19 billion naira loss on Tuesday, and this would have made up enough for the losses we've seen Monday and Tuesday.
MTN, because I know the day before
MTN was not one of the triggers. Boa Foods did the magic yesterday. Boa Foods was one of the
We love food.
Yes. So the all-share index rose yesterday by 0.39%. Massive rise we saw in that spot there to 49,836.51 points, and the market cap is at 26.88 trillion naira at the moment. So we're seeing that the volume and value traded yesterday jumped massively as well. We saw 367.34 million units of shares traded, valued at 3.24 billion naira, and all transacted in over 3,000 deals. That's not as much as we saw on Tuesday. Sectoral performance was largely positive. We saw banking index up 0.62%. FBN Holdings, Access Core did the magic in that spot. Consumer goods, we saw PZ Cousins. We saw Unilever was down. That didn't help. That didn't trigger the downturn in that space. We also saw industrial goods up, and insurance was the only downer. Oil and gas, O&O did the trick here. So we're hoping that the market continues in this bullish trend. We move over to the fixed income space where we saw kind of bullish sentiments for the bond space. Yields are seeming to go down there, but maybe it's just slightly. But we're hoping that does not affect the market so much in that space as well. Oil, the NTB auction was also not, quiet transactions happen in that space as well. But we have Caleb Alimi to give us more details about what's really going on in the fixed income space. Good morning, Caleb.
Good morning, Will.
Caleb, we're seeing so much happening in the fixed income space. Maybe not so much. Space yesterday had a bit more transactions than we saw in previous, sessions. What's going on, especially with interbank liquidity? How's that affecting fixed income transactions?
Thank you, Will. Over the last week or so, we've been having a bit of liquidity crunch in the system. But given the FAC inflows that came in late on Tuesday, that has significantly improved. And that has also begun to spur activity in the fixed income space. Like you rightly mentioned, a bit of activity in the bonds market where yields are trending downward. And that's as a result of bankers and other banks trying to plug out this excess liquidity that we have. You'd also find that there's a bit of activity in the NTB space as well, in the treasury bill space. The bills that have attracted most of the attention are the CBN special bills, largely because they are short dated. have maturities as close as October, November, and even December. Those are the ones that get a lot of their attention with all of the liquidity in the system. We've seen interbank, rates, overnight rates also drop from around 12% where they started the week to about 7% as of yesterday, all riding on the FAC inflows that have come to improve system liquidity. Interestingly, this morning, there's been an OMO auction. We look forward to where the CBN floated about 50 billion in total across, 3 standard maturities. So we look forward to a bit of activity there as well, as liquidity, remains positive.
And so you mentioned the CBN special bills last for some time now. We saw sell-offs, massive sell-offs happening in that counter. Is that still going to happen, or is that happening still with the CBN special bills? You said investors are showing interest in that bill, but is it sell-offs or are they buying? Is it buy interest or sell interest that's happening there?
I mean, now what we have is buy interest, like I said, because of the positive liquidity. So what we have currently is buy interest. Investors are now plugging in, liquidity into those bills because they provide the highest yield.
So what are we seeing now in the markets? What are the sentiments? What are you observing at the moment?
Sentiments are bullish. We expect it to be bullish for the rest of the week and into early next week as liquidity remains positive.
Thank you so much, Caleb Alimi, fixed income dealer, FSDH Merchant Bank. So, that's what we have for the fixed income space. But the NASD market yesterday closed positive. It's still maintaining the positive sentiments that it started the week with, 0.24% up, 765.31 points, and it's still maintaining, added 1 million, to that, and that we're seeing 1.01 trillion naira.
One thing I notice about this market, it's very, sentimentally attached to 1 trillion naira. So even if it goes to about 900 and then it comes back.
It flips back to a trillion naira.
And then if it's going to be more, it's going to be a trillion and a million plus
maybe
one.
2 million added or 3 million. Then it goes back to a million.
It doesn't leave that 1 trillion for a long time.
But I hope that changes, because we saw a significant jump in the volume and the value traded. It was really massive, over 1,000% or more. And then we're wondering what's really happening, what's driving the sentiment in that market, and we're still hoping that investors probably keep pushing and keeping that bullish sentiments going on, because equities markets are really coming up. We're hoping that they close today, bullish. They closed the end of October. October ended well, so we're hoping the first trading day of the month of September is going to be bullish as well, because I want to report something positive.
Should we say that whatever sentiments we close with today will determine how the month will be?
Possibly. And if it's bullish, then it's going to be a bullish ride for September.
And if it's bearish, you hold your hearts.
I do hold my heart in it.
All right, well, thank you so much for the market update. To see you at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. All right, so we have more markets for you here in Business Morning, but first let's take a breather. When we come back, we'll head to London. Juliana is standing by. The pound is not looking so well. We saw that yesterday, continues the downtrend today, but Juliana will fill us in after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. We head straight to a London studio where Juliana is standing by. Juliana, good morning. Even though we don't have such good news, we do see that the pound is still down. Now it's less than $1.16. What's happening? I know it's the year of the squeeze. We have all of the pressure, but what's happening at this time?
It is the year of the squeeze, Lily. Good morning, by the way. And it is gloomy, and it is going to get even gloomier as we go into the Burr months when it gets cold and dark. And it does appear as if the economic activity that we've been speaking about relentlessly on your programme is a harsh reality, and it's really taking a hit on the pound. In fact, last month, the pound had its worst performance in almost 6 years. That was in the month of August. And this year alone, it's lost 14% of its value. As you said, at the moment, 1 British pound sterling will buy you about $1.16. If it goes 2 cents lower to about $1.14, and this is the lowest we've seen the pound since 1985. I think there are various reasons. A lot of economists this morning seem to be blaming Rishi Sunak a little bit. Rishi Sunak, just to remind people if you've forgotten, he was the former Chancellor of the Exchequer. He is in the battle to become the next Prime Minister, although the favourite by far is Liz Truss. And he did say a couple of weeks ago that if Liz Truss wins, then economic confidence in the UK will tank. And ever since he made that sentiment, we have started to see the pound falling rapidly. Another one of the reasons why the pound is so low is of the strength of the dollar. Over the pond, stateside, the aggressive interest rate hikes by the US Federal Reserve has strengthened the US dollar, and the British pound is falling off that. And it's not just sterling, also government bonds, the 10-year government bond, which is a benchmark for safe haven investors. That's also been having a very rapid sell-off because we know that borrowing is increasing, and any new bonds that are coming in are stronger than the previous bonds. So it's not going great at the moment, and it does all kind of encompass the cost of living crisis that we're going through. Really have to emphasize that I know lots of countries are going through this at the moment, but if you compare what's going on in the UK economy to any other comparable economy, it is hitting households at a much faster rate. What a lot of people don't mention, which is significantly important, is that the assistance we talk about from the British government to households is only helping those who are on no income, so those who are in receipt of welfare support. If you're a middle income earner, like the vast majority of people in this country, then it is hitting you right at the jugular. And unfortunately, things are only about to get worse.
Yeah, about to get worse. But we have the Oval Energy boss proposing a plan to help with energy bills. What's that about? How far can we expect it to go?
Yeah, well, this is a ray of sunshine, at least for some. But again, for those who are on in receipt of universal credit, OVO Energy, which is the third largest energy supplier in the UK, they've kind of copied what we saw earlier in the month, or early last month, from Centrica, which is the owner of British Gas. And they are offering support for people on prepayment meters. So you are somebody in this country who either pays for your energy bills via direct debit, and everybody would have seen that massive increase because last week, or a couple of weeks ago now, the energy regulator rose that cap, didn't they? They rose the benchmark to £3,500. But if you don't pay by direct debit and you pay by a card meter, so as soon as your gas goes up, you top up that card and you plug it back in, and then the lights come back on again. If you are on that, then they are going to be supporting you. I think they've announced £50 million worth of packages. So if you don't have enough money to heat your home or put the lights on, and then typically you would have like a £5 emergency buffer. So if it gets, it's kind of like an overdraft system. They're going to be increasing that by £15, as well as announcing this £50 million package, which is going to be available for the most vulnerable households from the 1st of October. They've also put out a 10-point plan to assist people, to help them with energy saving methods and energy saving measures, so you know what the peak times are for gas and electricity. But it's great, but it certainly isn't enough. And I think the fact that we've got energy bosses moving faster than the government is really telling. Tomorrow, finally, after 8 weeks of travelling around the country, the Conservative leadership race is over. A new successor for Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, unless something drastic happens, will be announced on Monday. And what we're expecting is an announcement of some sort to help struggling families. And this is a really serious situation. So we're not expecting it to be just for the most vulnerable households, but for everybody in this country who's going through really extraordinary times at the moment.
Yeah, seems a lot of packages get towards the vulnerable, and the people in the middle class are now getting, forgotten. We do hope to draw attention to that, Juliana. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you at 1:30.
Thanks, Ine.
All right, so from London now we head to the crypto space to see what is happening with the price of Bitcoin. We'll begin with the Fear Greed Index to see how that is doing this morning. We do know that yesterday we were at 23, but this morning now we're at 20. If we would have that on the screen now, the Fear Greed Index has gone down to 20. So it doesn't look like the sentiments are getting any better in the crypto space. They're much like what's going on in the UK. But it's a reflection of what the world is looking like now. At 20, it's extreme fear, and it means that investors are very afraid. But some people say it's a good time to get into the market, buy the dip, but I mean, we've been having this for a while now, so it looks really risky. Let's see the market cap as at 8 a.m. this morning. There you have it. It's even less than yesterday, almost 2% lower than it was yesterday at 975.19 billion naira. And then 24-hour volume is positive 11.11, 66.12 billion naira. And then we see the BTC dominance. Well, regained a bit from yesterday, 0.14 up at 39.29. Let's see the top alts by market cap. There you go. BNB is there, but we see more reds than green. Now, if these are the top alts by market cap looking more red, then we know that it's not a very good time. ADA, Nigeria's favorite, I think one of Nigeria's favorite, is also down more than 2%. eCash was really down yesterday. We had a conversation with the eCash creator yesterday, and it was really in the red. But we see it's recovered more than 6%. Oh, something going on. At least we have one green, something to make some of the investors happy. I think Amari mentioned that yesterday that there will be a correction. So we see that correction. XRP is down more than 1%. Let's see the price of Bitcoin. Now, there you go. It's still within 20, but lower than it was yesterday, 20,032 minus 1.20. 24-hour volume is 31.51. We have Gilbert Jopata now joining us for a conversation. Hi, Gilbert. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, Gilbert. So it's, well, a lot of markets are not looking good. Neither is the crypto market. But in this case now, what's the sentiment that is driving the market at this time?
Okay, the market is presently driven by Bitcoin technicals and the U.S. hawkish monetary policy. Oh. But putting the technicals into perspective, we just completed a falling wedge a few days ago. But the reality of such decline comes with a price hangover. So technical traders expect a potential downside. So the chart clearly shows us that traders are already testing the boundaries of that zone. And if this trend continues, we may just likely begin our next leg down. But on the hawkish monetary policy, we saw Bitcoin slip below $20,000 on Monday, and this was because investors were selling after the news. You know, the Federal Reserve reaffirms their position to keep increasing interest rates. Meanwhile, on the 20th and 21st of September, they are also expected to bring in new rates into the market. So investors presently are snake-bite careful, both from the monetary policy perspective and also from the technical side of the market.
But isn't it possible, Gilbert, to price this in, you know, even before? Because, I mean, Jerome Powell has made the announcement. We know the steps that the U.S. is most likely to take. Isn't it possible for investors to price it in even before the major announcements, instead of every time there's a sneeze, the market just reacts?
But fortunately, unfortunately, this is human nature. We have always seen it over and over again, even though we expect what the Fed will do to the market, but we still see retail traders knee-jerk. And this is quite typical because statistics has it that 90% of traders behave the same way. Only 10% of traders are able to react in a different manner. So this is how the 90% of the crowd always knee-jerk to news and events like this.
All right, Gilbert, just a very short one because we need to go now. We're expecting a Bitcoin price action. Do you see it do 15,000 before 30,000 or the other way?
Well, so far, the 17,000 zone is already bottom until proven otherwise.
Okay, all right, Gilbert. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's a pleasure.
All right, so that's the program for today, Thursday. We have a final one for this week tomorrow. So what are we going to talk about? In less than 24 hours, you would know. Join us then. But at 1:30, Will Ibong will be here with Business Incorporated. I'm John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.